We know that people are going to be breaking into, hacking in, breaking into, or trying to break into our trusted electronic repositories, and they're going to succeed sometimes. They're going to be able to corrupt records wherever they can, which is not a new phenomenon. You know, counterfeiting and doing something like this has a sort of a long history and tradition. But what the particular problem is for digital electronic records is that records can be changed very easily, and it sometimes is very difficult to even know that a change has occurred. That may be something that might be associated with some metadata that might indicate that a change was occurred, but you might not know the extent of the change. Consequently, what we recommended, and it's something that I've been advocating since about 94, 95, is the use of digital hash digest technology. And I'm sure that the folks know all about that, but just a quick synopsis of it, what it does, it takes the bit stream of any digital object, reduces it. Think of it as a compression algorithm, but it's not that. It's not reversible, where you can reduce million bits, 100 million bits to 160 bits. And that's an integrity, not a protection tool, but a detection tool, because if you take that same bit stream 30 years later and run it through the same algorithm, you should get the identical hash digest, so that you know that if those two hash digests match, then you have a digital object whose integrity has persisted over time. And that becomes important then when you're looking at geographic distributed electronic records repositories, and you can establish that these two have not changed. And even more importantly, in a web context where so many things are being posted, documents are being posted and they're publicly available and so forth, people are going to comment, they're going to add things, and over time, a document, an email message, a report can become corrupted. So how do you know 20 years from now which one is, quote, the original? Well, if you have in one trusted repository, you have a digital object with a hash digest, and a hash digest that's been renewed as necessary over time, you can establish with all the other multiple copies that may exist, which one or ones of those that exist have the same hash digest. And if you have the same hash digest that matches, then you know that the integrity has not been corrupted. So I think that security, not just physical security of our facilities, but this digital protection of the integrity of records is going to be very, very important. And unfortunately, at least from my take, is that traditional archival repositories seem to be relying upon their internal security procedures and saying that all of this added work is really not necessary. I think it's better to be conservative at this point in time and provide that type of security.
Certainly, I suspect the Tate Art Gallery in London.
Pardon?
The Tate Art Gallery in London had a problem in its archives a few years ago with a forger who was going in and documenting his forgeries by updating the records that they held of different artists. And it was only when they caught him for particular forgery that it came to light that he'd been doing this, and they're unable to go back through all the records to sort it out. So if it's a problem in traditional archives, you're quite right. It's certainly going to be an even worse problem in the more modern ones. So you've given us a couple of challenges for the future, and I'm sure that you've identified quite a number more. But could you just say, because you've done a lot of work outside of the government sector as well, in commercial companies, do they have a greater awareness and greater understanding of the digital curation, digital preservation problem in your view?
It depends, Seamus, largely on whether that organization has to deal with regulatory compliance. If a pharmaceutical company is keenly aware of this, for example, I was a couple of weeks ago, I was doing some work with Shearing Pharmaceutical in Berlin. Even though they are a German company, one of their subsidiaries manufactures drugs in the United States and therefore is subject to the Food and Drug Administration regulations, specifically what's called 21 CFR Part 11, deals with electronic records. So you find pharmaceutical companies. There is doing work with a sewage district, moving that stuff through the sewage system, purifying, getting clean water out of that process. They have to deal with Environmental Protection Authority requirements. They also have to deal, because they're involved in construction, with something else called the Occupation Safety Health Administration, OSHA. And there are things dealing with the conditions under which people do work. That's a regular. So that is an important area. There